and I installed them. And because I had changed, but as you can see, I put new ignition coils and new plugs. I put the E3s, and and still randomly, especially when I started up, I would get hesitation, and then after uh, it, you were running, it lasts like 10 seconds, and it'll go away, and but then it'll trigger in this cars, it will trigger um, the check engine light, and once the check engine light gets triggered, the computer on this vehicle um, will make it so that the idle goes up a little to like 1,000 instead of 750. And I don't like that. I like to have them. So I bought the new injectors they fit perfect and the whole 9 yards and everything. But when I did, it triggered a code of rich after a while. It was not smoking black, or once it's, and it wasn't missing or anything. The misfire codes went away, but after a few starts, it will trigger a rich condition. That code on the bank 1. So it will go up in RPM. And when I did the short-term fuel trim on both of them at idle, it was like a 25% or something like that of fuel trim, negative 25%, meaning it was adjusting, it was lowering the fuel injection delivery to 25%, 25% less than it was put in. That's what a fuel trim readout does on your scanner. So that means it was throwing too much fuel out of those injectors. So I'm gonna take them out. They were like $100. So I took these are the old injectors. I went and dug in the trash and got them out, and I emptied a can of chlorinated gunk carburetor parts cleaner. I always use chlorinated. Look at that. And the injectors were clean outside. So all that junk that you see, all that junk, you can't even see through it. All that junk is from inside the injectors. All 6 injectors. And I tested them, and the injectors read on resistance. I put them on the resistance reading of 2,000 ohms, and they were giving me 11 on the factory ones, all of them, and they all activated when and the one thing, when you test these injectors, I used a power probe, and I put the ground. I used the ground on one of the connectors, and then hit it with power, and you're not going to feel a click. It's really soft. It doesn't mean that they're not working. It's the design of this injectors. Is you're not going to feel the click. You have to make pressure with the tip of your finger to be able to feel the change once you activate the coil inside the terminals that activate the coil to open the injector. For testing, I just blew through them, but I knew that I wasn't that I didn't have a problem as far as resistance goes, because they all tested 11 ohms, and that's spec. That's textbook Nissan factory spec. Now the ones that I installed, I tested them. I should have tested them before, and I should have read. So note to you guys in self, when you're going to buy injectors, go ahead and test or look to see what the ohm spec is on them. Now granted, different companies use different specs, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say that next time I buy injectors, replacers, buy them it'll the same resistance spec that than the other ones, than the ones you're replacing, you know. So I'm gonna go ahead before I'm gonna install them. I'm gonna let those soak in. They've been soaking in for probably like 20-30 minutes. I'm not gonna let them soak overnight. I've been you know, wiggling them around. So I'm gonna go and show you guys what it's reading. And it's an old, the one I'm using, the scanner I'm gonna use is an old scanner. So, but it's still good. And it actually, this old scanners, I didn't know, I just found out. I was just playing with it because I always keep an old scanner inside the vehicle that I use daily. And this scanners is an Actron, is an old Actron scanner. My workhorse is, I don't use it anymore because I have the ones that are Bluetooth enacted, and I can send reports to people and stuff. But this thing has an actual misfire counter. I didn't know that. And you know, we're gonna go connect this thing, and we're gonna run it. Here's the connectors down here. All right. So I'm gonna show you before and after. We're gonna do a pause and come back after I install the injectors. So that's normal for the vehicle to rev up like that. So you see we got a check engine light on. And we're going to hit vehicle diagnostics, enter. I don't want to erase the data, so read the codes. You got two codes. Oh, actually one, because I erased them a little bit. So system P0172, system to rich, bank 1. So now we're going to go to view the data as the vehicle is running, and I want you to pay attention to how much the fuel trim is. The computer's having to trim down the fuel after the fuel injectors. All right. Entire data list. So I know we're still at 129 in coolant temperature, but it should never be that high at the beginning on the trim, the fuel trim. See? So now, see where the fuel trim is at? Short-term fuel trim is at 17.4 on bank 1, and on bank 2, short-term fuel trim is 13.3. It should not be that high. Okay. Now I'm going to erase it. I'm going to erase the check engine light, and on this particular scanner, you got to shut the car off and put it on in the on position, then get out of the screen. Okay, now so we're gonna go now on to, excuse me, I'm not, my older movement. I suck at making videos, but I still make them. Read codes. Okay, so now we're gonna erase the code. What? Erase codes. And yes, command sent. What's it? And there it is. Okay, so now we're going to start it up again. Check engine light is off. And watch what the RPMs do. After you erase, you see how they went considerably lower? Car's not fully warmed up yet, but they're at 750 or probably less. We're going to see now the list. It's so bright. I don't know if they can adjust the brightness of this thing. Let's see. Okay. So, command sent. We're getting out of there. Escape. Now we're gonna view the data, and I want you to see entire data list. So the malfunction light is off. So let's see, short-term trim is at 17.4 and 12.1. But look at it now. Look at the long term. It means it's been detecting it a rich condition. So even on bank 2. So it's just throwing it at 25% less, meaning it's cutting off 25% of the fuel supply. I think it does it through pulsation millisecond adjustments. And look at that. Short term is 17.4. Now, to be fair, I didn't want to just take them off right away. I'm going to shut it off because I'm going to take those old injectors. I went ahead and programmed. I went ahead and pulled out the expensive one that I have. I have an Altel MS906 that programs, and I went ahead and did a relearn and let the computer, the ECU, relearn, and it went down from 25.6 to what you see now, but that's still way too much. Okay, so that means those injectors are not compatible. So I'm gonna do another video on this eventually, and I'll show you guys what happened.